From the largest cobras in the world to giant anacondas found by workers, there are many cases of unexpectedly huge snakes being discovered. Not only that, but record-breaking snakes have also turned up as uninvited guests in houses and bore a suspicious resemblance to prehistoric beasts. In this article, I will show you these and other massive and unusual snakes that were caught on camera. When you come across a huge snake, it can be quite a terrifying sight, but even more terrible is when the snake is busy eating something equally huge at that moment. The inhabitants of the Philippines were shocked when they saw just such a scene, not far from a rice field in one of the villages. A massive cobra was devouring a python, a truly enormous cobra to eat one of them. Cobras don't often eat other snakes and usually prefer much smaller prey, or even their own kind. But this seems to have been one of the largest cobras in the world, if not the biggest. That's how it managed to swallow such large prey. After such an extreme meal, this record-breaking cobra ended up overeating. But it also ran into problems. The cobra got stuck under a concrete slab. The locals decided to help free it. In addition, the cobra could potentially have gotten itself out and then gone on an angry rampage. Some people poured water on the cobra so it wouldn't die of dehydration. Others pulled on it, and a third pried up the ground to help dislodge it. Ultimately, the operation was a success. One of the planet's largest cobras was rescued without wanting to take revenge on anyone. In South America, you always need to keep alert, even when relaxing by a small forest stream. You shouldn't assume no snakes could be nearby, and in fact some very long and thick ones might be, as in this case. There are giant snakes not only in South America, but also India, where there seems to be an abundance of them. But a sighting like this video, filmed by a resident of the state, is still rare. He captured an absolutely gigantic monster snake in some forest. It's hard to even imagine how truly massive and bulky this snake is in real life, but it's clear it must be among the largest on the entire planet. It's even possible it could be the leader among all snakes in terms of sheer size. Some even speculate the videographer filmed a surviving titanoboa, a prehistoric giant. What do you think? Could this be true, or is it just some local colossal python? It often happens that you come across giant snakes completely by accident. This video is excellent proof, showing workers digging with an excavator on a large farm when suddenly a giant anaconda fell right into the bucket. No one expected this. Check out the size on this thing. Apparently the snake lived on the very edge of the water, possibly even in it, so they managed to scoop it up. The anaconda briefly rode along in the bucket, even helping out with the excavating work, before the worker managed to return it to the water. There's no doubt the anaconda from the previous video was large, but it's tiny compared to this absolute monster found in the Dominican Republic. Unfortunately, no official measurements were taken, but now we know it's entirely possible to find a 10-meter-long snake lurking in the jungle. What people used to believe only with great reluctance is now an expected and unsurprising reality. Stumbling upon a snake, even a very large one, while out in some forest. But after all, snakes can pop up anywhere, even right beneath your house. The residents of this small hut began to suspect just that and called in workers, who arrived with a forklift. They picked up and lifted the entire house, revealing a whole den of creepy snakes underneath. It's incredible they weren't crushed by the house's weight, and makes you wonder why they decided to make their home there. Couldn't they have found a more suitable spot? Okay, snakes under the house are scary enough, but it gets much creepier when they sneak straight inside. In Asia, it's not uncommon for huge pythons to let themselves in. For example, one python crawled up into the ceiling space, and workers had to rip open the ceiling, doing some demolition work in order to pull the snake back out. It turned out to be very big. Something similar happened in this case too. With combined effort, the people managed to lure the snake out from the ceiling cavity. Unfortunately, workers often have no choice but to destroy the ceiling to evict these uninvited guests. But these snake rescuers managed to extract a very large and dangerous snake from the ceiling space without too much additional damage. Finding a massive snake in Asia may not be surprising, but what about in the USA? I can understand stumbling on some python in Florida, but a giant snake slithering around North Detroit is another matter. Just like that, this uninvited guest decided to liven up people's dreary daily life and climbed onto a garage roof. The giant 17-foot python shocked everyone with its sudden appearance. Fortunately, it was soon removed before it could harm anyone. However, that likely wouldn't have happened anyway, since the python turned out to be someone's pet. Apparently, the reptile had just decided to go for a slither. Imagine the feeling of a person who walks into their garden, maybe to look at some plants or water something, and suddenly sees a massive snake crawling along their stone wall. Personally, after that, I wouldn't go back in there again. Just look how big this snake is. It's one of the biggest I've ever seen in my life. Fortunately, the snake decided not to linger in the garden and slowly slid away. Apparently, in that garden, we saw yet another python. These snakes are well known for their gigantic proportions, so coming across a colossal python in the animal world isn't uncommon. However, it's much more unusual to see an enormous rattlesnake, as filmed here in Florida. While rattlesnakes can't exactly be called very small, giant ones like this certainly stand out. According to the author of the video, the snake was 2 meters long, no less. Such individuals are not found often, unlike pythons, which do not have poison. Rattlers have a fairly strong toxin that can cause problems with the blood, and in some cases, they can kill a person in literally 2 minutes. In general, you should stay away from these reptiles, especially if they are so huge. In this video, you don't often see a huge rattlesnake, but even less often you can stumble upon something like this. Someone might think that it's a mutant caterpillar, but in fact it's a snake. It's a noisy viper that usually has a slender body. In this case, the snake clearly doesn't follow its diet. She's thick and also very short, which creates a comical effect. In addition, it really moves like a caterpillar and not a snake. But jokes with this reptile are still dangerous. Even such an awkward viper is capable of finishing off a person without any problems. The noisy viper is considered one of the most dangerous snakes in Africa, where it is common for humans. Every 5th or 6th bite we have is from an anaconda. Today we saw it in different places, but we haven't seen it on the road yet. It was a huge snake trying to crawl across a small highway and get to the opposite side of the road. Nobody wanted to contradict such a huge reptile, so the drivers obediently stopped. The snake royally crawled along the road in no hurry at all. But in the end, she still got to her destination without harming anyone. And this snake decided to be even closer to the cars, and in the most literal sense. This python liked the car so much that he decided to crawl under it and settle down properly there. The snake circled itself around the wheel and even stuck its head through the brake disc. They tried to get it out, but at first it was unsuccessful. He clearly didn't want to budge. They had to drag him away from his favorite car transport. But who knows for how long? I'm sure the python will return there. It's always dangerous to deal with poisonous snakes, especially if we are talking about the reticulated python, the second most toxic land snake on the planet. This is the one this man managed to catch. As you can see, this snake is very large. As a rule, reticulated pythons are smaller than this giant reptile. It didn't like the fact that it was pulled out of its temporary lair and treated like this. The snake tries to bite the handler, but he does not allow the reptile to do this. Always watch your step when walking in the forest, especially if snakes live there. Otherwise, you can accidentally step on such a giant and really anger him. But I also advise you to pay attention to the trees. Sometimes you can see surprises on them. This is a python, not some kind of huge poisonous snake, but this does not mean that he is safe if disturbed, or even more so, angered. He will definitely try to bind the offender with his deadly rings. Millions of years ago on the planet where the dinosaurs existed, there was the largest snake in history, which had incredibly impressive dimensions and a terrifying appearance. Could any snake from our time give it rebuff? Let's figure it out. Titanoboa. If you have never seen this snake on the internet, believe me, you have lost a lot. Because it was a huge beast on land, the same as crocodiles or something like them. It was an easy snack to catch for the Titanoboa, which was not even worth trying especially hard to get. Moreover, it is a snake that lived during the period when dinosaurs became extinct. So she had absolutely no equal. Her current descendants are boa constrictors, also not small guys. But compared to her great-great-grandmother, who grew up to 15 meters in length and ate up to a weight of more than a ton, modern snakes, no matter how big they are even small. Our heroine overtook the current record holder anaconda by 2 to 3 times in length and about 5-6 times in weight. So you listen about these huge creatures, especially snakes, and you can't help but think of the New York Zoological Society back in the 30s of the 20th century. It announced a prize of $1,000 to anyone who could provide evidence of the existence of a snake more than 12.2 meters long. Time passed, but no one took the money, so the size of the desired snake was reduced to 10 meters. Moreover, the amount of the reward grew with every year, and now it is more than $50,000. Therefore, if a giant snake shows up, you will have to overcome your fear and definitely try to get that extra money. Although, on the other hand, there is still something to worry about. Even though this huge thing doesn't show up in our time, the Earth is teeming with other creepy creatures, some of which are 100 times more dangerous than the legendary one. An anomalous titanoboa, and together with its habitat, many people know this is Australia. There it has long been scaring the locals, not allowing them to travel peacefully through the deserts. This is understandable, because the taipan is at least very large, and even if it is not the largest snake, but still calling a 2-meter hulk small, personally, I have a hard time getting my tongue around that. What aggravates the situation is its cunning coloration that causes the taipan to cleverly camouflage itself in the sand and scare people even more effectively. The taipan's venom is considered one of the most toxic in the world. Just a few milligrams are enough to take down an adult. Despite this, the taipan does not attack humans out of the blue. As a rule, it bites only if stepped on or grabbed. But here again, the size plays a role. With such dimensions, the taipan can bite without meaning to. In general, the taipan rightfully occupies a leading position in the ranking of the most dangerous snakes on the planet. Meeting it in natural habitat is highly undesirable. So if you still decide to visit Australia and ramble through the deserts, be extremely careful. Better yet, abandon the idea altogether. Find a normal beach and swim with dolphins instead. I think no one will argue with the fact that finding a yellow taipan in yellow sand is as difficult as a black cat in a dark room. The main reason why you should be afraid and beware of this is, of course, the poisonousness of McCoy's taipan. Its venom rightfully takes the place of the most poisonous land snake on the planet. One dose of the poison of this monster is enough to kill over 250,000 mice in the blink of an eye. You can imagine this. The taipan can kill off at once 100 people. The heart of hypothetical test subjects will freeze forever just 30 minutes after meeting this beast. So it's time to say thank you to the restrained nature of the creature, thanks to which it does not set itself the goal of mowing down our entire population. McCoy's taipan prefers to enjoy various mice, jerboas, rats, and the like. But if a titanoboa stood in his way, he would have feasted on it, because the giant simply would not have time to understand how this monster bit it from different sides. Well, saving from the bite would not have been possible, and it would not be easy to read the attack either. After all, the taipan is always hiding not only in sands, but even among stones. It almost never hits the radar of other creatures. Those who listened carefully remember how I mentioned that McCoy's taipan does not go into human territory, but is content with a tit in its hands, having breakfast, lunch, and dinner on its native desert territory. But there is a completely different case, the netted brown snake. It can be freely found in the area of farms or settlements, and all because the snake's diet is mainly made up of rodents. This miracle of nature is hunted mainly during the day. The first thing it doesn't bother is people, but if you disturb the snake a little, the aggressor won't find it for people. There is one good news: lethality. The bite of this creature does not exceed 20%, so the chances of survival are good. At least I didn't risk it. So if any of you see an S-shaped snake of brown color and next to the habitat of rodents, the best thing is to slowly, without unnecessary and sudden movements, get away from this place. And here's another creature that would gladly compete with Titanobor from Taipan Makoya, and in general with anyone. The truth is, it is underwater, and these fights, unfortunately or fortunately, we will never see. The name this beauty received in honor of the English admiral and investigator Edward Belcher, who was the first to discover her. The length of this reptile is not too large, no more than 1 meter. The snake loves reefs and can stay underwater for up to 8 minutes. The main food for the Belcher snake is fish or shellfish. And now we will talk about the fastest snake in the world, the black mamba. This unusually beautiful creature is found in Africa. It is quite large, aggressive and cruel towards everyone and everything. As I already said, it is very fast. It can move at a speed of over 11 kilometers per hour, which is approximately equal to the average running speed of a trained person. If a mamba attacks, it makes several bites at once, the first to weaken the victim and the rest to finish off. The black mamba is capable of injecting up to 400 milligrams into its offender, and if you take into account that 15 is enough to kill a person, the scale of the danger begins to strike even more powerfully. But the black mamba also has its advantages in addition to the danger. It is an excellent pain reliever. So French biology toxic proteins mombalgins for making an analgesic. It is more effective than morphine, they are addictive. Since I started talking about the beauty of snakes, I mentioned the black mamba. It would be terrible not to tell you about this beauty. It is found in the waters of the Indian and Pacific Oceans and almost never attacks people, only in cases of self-defense, but nothing more. At the same time, the poison of the sawmill is dangerous. One bite is enough for about 3 people. But as if this is already nonsense, I mean that in comparison with McCoy's taipan or Pelcher's snake, this is not a strong poison at all. However, even the poison of the 2-colored sawfish is deadly. By the way, did you know that it was on this snake that scientists from the States proved that sea snakes can do without water for up to 7 months? Interesting, isn't it? Seawater is in no way suitable for them, and is never suitable. If there is no other option, then these snakes will rather starve and lose up to 25% of their body weight, but will not drink salt water. Tiger snake! We just talked about the snake that can only cope with 3 people at a time. How the terrible killer is waiting for us again, who will not spare anyone. A snake can cope with 400 people and lives without blinking an eye. This monster is in the southeast of Australia and the island of Tasmania. Although why did I immediately label the snake as a monster? Because in truth, it is not aggressive. When in danger, it will not swing its tail and protrude into an S shape and everything like that, but it will simply crawl away and wait. Moreover, in order to piss off this creature, it at least needs to be detected. It's not that easy. After all, a tiger snake's real camouflage profile, skin coloring, completely depends on the season and the environment, and can be brown or orange-gray-green.